Hare Krishna. We continue reading from teachings of Queen Kunti. We are on prayer number 18, which is in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, Text 35, Liberation from Ignorance and Suffering. So we have been reading the purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and we'll continue reading the purport. We'll just read the translation. And yet others say that you have appeared to rejuvenate the devotional service of hearing, remembering, worshipping, and so on, in order that the conditioned souls suffering from material pangs might take advantage and gain liberation. So reading on, the fact is that the spirit soul is very, very small. Balagra shata bhagasya shatadha kalpitasya cha shvetashvatara Upanishad 5.9. So the size of the soul is given in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. The size of the soul is given. The soul is 1/10,000, the size of the tip of a hair. Suppose we were to take a hair and divide it into 100 parts. Could we do it? No, that's not possible. But if we could do it and then divide it again into another 100 parts, each part would be the size of the spirit soul. So that is our size. 1/10,000, the tip of the hair. We take the tip of a hair, divided it into 100 parts, and then again divide it into 100 parts. So that means 1/10,000. So we are taking the tip of the hair and cutting it into 10,000 parts. And that one part is the size of the soul. Of course, this is not possible to understand by experimental knowledge. So how can it be learned? One must learn it from this. One must learn of this from an authority. So we can't experiment it. We cannot take a tip of a hair and cut it into 10,000 parts and say, it's not practical for us to do it, difficult for us to understand it. So how do we learn from this? From authority. Our knowledge is so imperfect that it cannot deal with such subtle affairs. And because rascals cannot deal with such things, they think that matter is the cause of life. So just because the soul is so subtle, because it's spiritual, right? It's spiritual. And just because we are not able to understand about the spirit soul, then we say, oh, matter is the cause of life. But that's not true. How can we get proper knowledge? We hear from who? From authority. Authority means who? Who has this knowledge? Who has learned this knowledge? Who has realized this knowledge? So nonetheless, they have not been able to demonstrate that life comes from matter. Let them make chemicals in their laboratory and produce even a small insect with hands, legs, and eyes. So if we say, oh, yes, matter is the cause of life. At one point of time, some agitation happened and suddenly life was manifest. No, that's not the truth. That's not how it is. If that's the truth, are we able to even make an insect, a tiny insect in a laboratory? Every night we see many of such small insects with legs and eyes with which they approach the light. From such small insects up to Brahma, there are 8,400,000 different forms of life, among which we are traveling from body to body, leaving one body and entering another, as stated by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, Tatha Dehantar Praptihi. So there are 8,400,000 different species. 8,400,000 species. And we, the soul, we, the living entity, are traveling. We are in one body, then we give up this body, go inside another body. Like that, we are traveling in this material world, body to body, giving up one, taking up another, right from the small, tiny insect up to Lord Brahma. That's what we are doing. Therefore, either we must reject Krishna's word or reject all the so-called scientific theories that life comes from matter. But we are pledged to Krishna consciousness, and therefore we cannot reject Krishna's word. We accept Krishna when he says that we have to travel from one body to another. So then the choice is ours. We continue to think that life is coming from matter. That's our choice. Or we accept what Krishna is telling us in Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. But if one is, he is pledged, he wants to become Krishna conscious, he is Krishna conscious, he will accept Krishna's word. And that is that we, the soul, we are traveling from one body to another. Every living entity within this material world is under the influence of avidya, ignorance. We are inside a material body, so we have to understand. And we are thinking we are the body, so we have to understand is that we are covered by ignorance. Our consciousness is covered. Yeah. We are ignorant right now. Avidya karma samjnaya tritya shaktir ishyate. God, Krishna, has many millions of potencies. Parasya shaktir vividheva shruyate. And they have been summarized into three categories: the external potency, the internal potency, and the marginal potency. The marginal potency and the internal potency are of the same spiritual quality, but the third potency, the external potency, is inferior. So Krishna, the Supreme Lord, he has millions and millions of potencies. We say God is omnipotent, right? So what does it mean? He has millions of potencies. Now, these potencies are broadly categorized into three categories for our understanding, because for us to understand unlimited, we can't conceive, we can't understand unlimited. Now, these have been categorized into three potencies: external, internal, and marginal. External potency is the material energy. The internal potency is the spiritual energy, and the marginal potency is the jivas, the souls, the living entities. Now, the living entities and the internal, the spiritual energy, we have the same spiritual quality, Satchid Ananda. But the material energy, the third energy, she's inferior because she is not conscious. She is full of ignorance. There's no consciousness. She's not Satchid Ananda. The third potency is inferior. And that's what we can see here. The material elements, they're not conscious, they're dead. It's we, the soul, who's conscious. Vishnu Shaktir Paraprokta Kshetra Gyakhya Tatha Para Avidya Karma Samnanya Tritya Shaktir Ishyate. Vishnu Puran 6.7.61. So this is coming in Vishnu Puran. In this material world, everyone is in ignorance, avidya. Even Brahma was ignorant until he was given knowledge by Krishna. Therefore, no one should be proud of his knowledge. Everyone in this material world is a rascal. A particular living entity desires, if I can get the opportunity to obtain the post of Brahma, then I can create a big universe. Thus, he receives the body of Brahma. And the small insect thinks, if I can create a small hole within this room, then I can live very peacefully and eat. Thus, Brahma desires to create a universe. We desire to create a skyscraper, and an ant desires to create a hole in the room. But the quality of the work is same. We are all fools. However, because we do not realize that because these things are material, they will not last. Because of ignorance, we think this will be very nice, that will be very nice. Kama karma bihi. We create some desire, calm, and then we work accordingly. This results in so many difficulties. Klishyanti, to become Brahma is not a very easy thing. Brahma is such a big post, and it is given to a very qualified living entity who is highly advanced in austerities and penance. But he is also a living entity like us. In America, there are many citizens, and President Ford is also a citizen. But by the dint of his ardent labor and diplomacy, he captured the post. Still, he is an ordinary citizen. President Nixon, for example, has now been dragged down and is no longer president. This is because he was an ordinary citizen. Similarly, if we like, we may also become Brahma. So what we have to try to understand is that we, each and every living entity in this material world, we are born in ignorance. It's only after we get the knowledge, after we hear this knowledge from Krishna, then we have the knowledge, then no more ignorance, situated in liberated life. Lord Brahma was also born in ignorance. Then he heard the knowledge from Krishna. So that's the reason Prabhupada is saying, no one should be proud of his knowledge, because we are in the material world. Why we are in the material? The very fact we are in the material world means we are a rascal. Why? We had a desire to lord it over this material nature. We had a desire to be situated we had a desire to compete God. We have a desire to become God. And that's why we are here in this material world. We are desiring this or that. We are desiring, Brahma is desiring create a universe. We are desiring create skyscraper, and is desiring create a ant hole. And we are saying we will be happy. So because of these desires, we have to work very hard. But we don't realize no matter how hard we work, whatever position we attain in the material world, it's all temporary. It's all temporary. It has to be given up, because all this is on the bodily platform. It's not who we truly are. We are the spirit souls, part and parcel of Krishna, but we are thinking, I am this and I'm that. So therefore, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Kita janma hao yatha tuya das, bahir mukha brahma janme nahi ash. Let me become an insect in a place where your devotee is present, because if I fall down in the dust of the feet of a devotee, my life will be successful. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, bahir mukha jan, brahma janme nahi ash. I would not want to be a Brahma and not be a devotee of Krishna. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, I don't want to be Brahma. If I'm not a devotee of Krishna, then I don't even want Brahma. I rather become an insect where your devotee is there. Because when I walk in the dust of the lotus feet of your devotee, then my life will be successful. So this is the position, because of material things, we get attached. We start thinking that this is who I am. The bigger position I have in the material world, the more important I am, the better I am. But that's just the body. Today we might be in a very important position, but as soon as we give up this body, we might be in the body of a dog. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying that our desire should be to become a devotee of Krishna. That's our real position. So he's saying, okay, if I'm supposed to become an insect in my next life because of my karma, let me become an insect in the house of a devotee. Like that, at least when I touch the lotus feet, the dust of the lotus feet of the devotee, then my life is successful. Because we are in ignorance, Maya, at any time we may forget Krishna. Therefore, we must always engage in Krishna consciousness so that we shall not forget him. That is indicated by Kunti Devi by the words Shravana Smarana Hani. The word Shravana means hearing, Smarana means remembering, and Arhana means worshipping the deity of Krishna. One should always engage oneself in hearing about, remembering, and worshipping Krishna. All the centers of the Krishna consciousness movement are open only for this purpose, to facilitate chanting, dancing, and worshipping, so that we shall not forget Krishna. Sadatad bhava bhavitaha. If we always think of Krishna, there is a chance that we shall remember Krishna at the end of life. Ante Narayana Smritihi. Ante Narayana Smritihi. So Krishna says that if you remember me at the time of giving up this body, you will come to me. You don't need to come back to this material world again. You will attain my abode. So we are practicing here. Kunti Maharani is also saying, Let me not forget him. One should not forget Krishna. And so how do we remember? Srila Prabhupada is saying the Krishna consciousness movement, all the centers are for this purpose: hearing, chanting, dancing, worshipping, so that we can always remember Krishna. So we can always remember Krishna. And in that way, we will have a chance that we will be able to remember him at the end of life. Ante Narayana Smritihi. Is that okay? And so we have to practice. This is the practice. We have to practice. If everything takes practice. For example, if one wants to dance on stage, one has to perform many rehearsals to practice how to dance. Then if one becomes an expert dancer, when one dances on stage, one will receive acclaim. Ah, a very good dancer. But one cannot say, I shall go immediately to the stage and become a good dancer. That's not possible. One may say, no, I shall not attend the rehearsal. Just give me the stage and I shall perform. But the director will not allow this, for one cannot become a good dancer without practice. The real purpose of life is to remember Krishna when one's life comes to an end. Ante Narayana Smritihi. If at the time of death, one can remember Krishna, one's life is successful. We may say, oh, I'll remember Krishna. I don't need to practice. I'll remember him at the time of death. But if we have not practiced something, we won't be able to do it. It's very evident even in simple things, simple material things. Prabhupada is using the practice of a dancer. If one is not practicing dancing, how will he become an expert dancer? He has to practice and practice to become expert. So we have to practice to remember Krishna while we are living, so that we can remember him when we give up this body. And that's the perfection of life. That's the perfection of life. Then we can go back home, back to Godhead. Don't come to this material world. Is that okay? So continue hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping Krishna. And then go back home, back to Godhead. Kunti Maharani ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.